Welcome to Food for Thought. Today's episode is celebrating Thanksgiving, zero waste, vegan, during a pandemic. I don't think I've ever said those words all in one sentence. Before we begin, my name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. You can find me at joyfulvegan.com. Thanks for subscribing to Food for Thought. Thanks for leaving ratings and reviews, and thanks for supporting this podcast. It is 100% listener sponsored. If you'd like to join others in supporting this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. You can pledge monthly or annually and get your perks right away. Thank you so much in advance. Hi, everyone. As you know, as of this recording, I've been teaching live in real time online vegan cooking classes every week since now April 2020. And if you ever hear me talk about these classes and you've missed the live class, you know I don't like dated information on my podcast, but just know that all of the live classes convert to on-demand classes once they're over. So if you have heard me talk about a class and you're interested, go to joyfulvegan.com/classes, and you can find that very class as an on-demand option, which means you get the whole video recording and you get all the recipes. We do have a number of holiday classes coming up, which I'm really excited about. I do love this time of year. We've got a Thanksgiving class. It's coming up just at the end of this week. We've got homemade holiday food gifts and a Christmas cookie, sugar cookies, royal icing. And that's part of a three-class bundle as well. So you can join any of those classes, but many more are coming. So I hope to see you over there. I hope you're doing well. You always hear me say that life is a series of lessons and gifts, and COVID has certainly given us our share of both. And challenges. What may often seem like challenges, though, I do feel like can be seen as opportunities. It's really a matter of perspective, including how COVID has challenged us. But despite the devastation it has wrought, and it has wrought devastation, 1,000 people are dying every day in the United States from this virus, I think we're incredible. I'm always impressed with how resourceful and resilient we are as a species, somewhat to the detriment of other species as well. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how we are getting through this. We're making this happen. We voted in the United States in unprecedented numbers this year. People are finding ways to connect. Events are happening, and many and most are being done safely. I look at what some of my favorite television shows are. I am a fan of the Great British Baking Show. And I was thinking, when this happened, I thought, oh my gosh, how are they going to handle this? How are they going to record? How are they going to film? And record. How are they going to film in a tent with this, select group of people and the judges and the hosts and et cetera? And they have all quarantined together. That's how they decided to do it. Some of them have their family members with them. They made it work. Another favorite show is Mock the Week. David and I watch Mock the Week when we sit down to just look for something funny. I don't watch a lot of U.S. politics, but I can somehow deal with the U.K. politics because it's just not as close to home, obviously. Also, just the comedians are funny. I feel like whenever I watch U.S. comedians on a show talking about politics, I'm just depressed at the end. But I watch Mock the Week, and they're genuinely there as comedians talking about politics or whatever topic versus a political show where comedians just happen to be talking about politics. Like, I just find Mock the Week really funny if you're interested. But I thought, how are they going to do that? And so they have the 6 comedians, and then there's the host. They all sit next to each other in kind of this, half round table, and they have plexiglass between them. The audience was much smaller and masked, although with the resurgence of the virus and another lockdown happening, I don't think they're going to have a live audience. They have a Zoom audience as well. The point is, we're creative. Restaurant owners are getting permits to get parking spots removed, to have tables set up outside. Events and classes are happening on Zoom. That's what we did with my classes. Organizers of TEDx talks are making that happen. The TEDx talk I was supposed to do in person is now scheduled for December. And I will be doing my TEDx now as a recorded video here in my house. Museums are offering virtual tours. Musicians are offering concerts where there is not an audience. I don't know if you're a fan of Nick Cave, but he had a concert which was incredible. It was just him alone in a concert hall, and it was so incredibly beautiful. Gyms are setting up equipment outdoors. Companies are realizing their employees can travel less and work from home more, and that's working. It's changing who we are. It's changing how we live. It's changing how we work. It's changing how we travel. We're taking good old-fashioned road trips again. We're writing more letters to each other, and we're feeling obligated or inclined to spend more time off the computer because we're so obligated to spend time on the computer because of work or school. My point is, we're getting through this with resiliency and determination and creativity, and I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by humans, and that is not to take away from the over now 10.4 million people who have had COVID, or the almost 250,000 deaths from COVID just in the United States alone. But it's to show how resilient and resourceful we humans are, and the holiday season will be no exception. Now, this episode is about American Thanksgiving. The Canadian Thanksgiving has already passed, but everything I'm sharing can be applied to you wherever you live, whatever holiday you're celebrating. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, that's okay. Really, this is about the autumn holidays, and one of our autumn holidays in the US, well, in North America, happens to be Thanksgiving. And then, of course, we've got the winter holidays coming up. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I have several episodes where I have talked about how to create beautiful meals without having turkeys served. Obviously, I have lots of episodes and lots of recipes about that. But I'm going to talk about how to make this particular holiday super duper special. Super duper special. Especially, well, and because of the COVID precautions that we're all taking, I hope we're all taking, and the guidelines are clear. So I really just hope you stay well, and hear some thoughts, and hear some ideas, and hear some suggestions about how to make it really special. Now, experts are concerned about the surge in the virus as the cold weather is settling in and people are inside more. I mentioned in the beginning, about 1,000 people are dying a day in the United States, and there's no evidence of that letting up. So the current recommendations include things like keeping invites to smaller than 3 households, fewer than 3 households, including the host's own family, hosting people outside when you can, holding gatherings for a limited period of time, keeping masks on for as long as possible, obviously with the exception of eating and drinking, maintaining a social distance, a physical distance, even when outside. Now, we are lucky enough to have a lot of outdoor space in our California home. We're in Northern California, so please don't mistake us for Southern California or Florida or somewhere where it stays warm all year round. It does get cold in the winter here. Not freezing. We don't have frost typically, and we don't have snow, but we do get rain and it does get cold. I woke up the other morning and it was 37 degrees, which might not sound cold to you, but that's cold to us. But we are still very lucky. We have a lot of outdoor space. And so after the initial few months, like the first few months of COVID, I think all of us were just, really afraid. We didn't know what this virus was. That's why it's called a novel coronavirus. Nobody knew what this was. No one had seen it before. Experts hadn't seen it before. We certainly hadn't seen it before. And so the first few months, we didn't do anything. We had mostly Zoom happy hours and Zoom dinners and drinks with friends and drinks with neighbors, all online. But after we kind of started understanding, like, okay, it passes through, obviously through all of the aerosols, through, our mucous membranes, basically. So if we're wearing a mask, it's protecting us and it's protecting each other. And so, okay, if we stay far enough apart so those aerosols can't, make it over to us and to our mucous membranes, then we're at a pretty low risk. So we started hosting dinners with friends in person in our backyard. Now, we have a number of different sitting areas in our backyard, and we have enough space to be able to sit at least 6 feet apart, but still have a very comfortable conversation. And we've never done more than 6 of us total. And to be honest, I don't think I would be comfortable doing more than More than that, we did make an exception for my mother's service, which was pretty small, considering that there are funeral services happening with, I think they said that I could do 50 people, but because I was having a memorial service for my mother out here in California, it did not include any family. So it was only my friends and, just friends who were able to make it on a Friday afternoon. So it was about 15 or 20 of us. And we all were outside and we were all masked and we were all socially distant. Weeks ago with some good friends of ours, and I left the little cafe tables out on the back patio, and it looks like a little cafe. It's just really cute. I actually really like it. And in fact, I am going to keep one of the tables on the patio that I hadn't had there before because I think it looks really cute. So we know what to do. I think most of us know what to do. We go inside to grocery stores. For a very limited amount of time, we wear our masks. We've been fine. We've had people like repair people come to our house. We all wear masks. It's for a limited number of time, right? That's what this is. Infectious disease experts have identified air circulation and ventilation as big factors in the spreading of COVID. So I'm not comfortable. We all have different comfort zones. I'm not comfortable having people inside the house for dinner or drinks. We were actually at another couple's house last weekend, and we were outside. It was freezing. It was windy. It was cold, but we put our blankets on. We all wore, coats and sweaters. And at one point they said, we can go downstairs. We can be distant. We could still keep our masks on. And I was like, I just rather stay outside because circulation and ventilation is a big part of it. Not that they don't have windows that we could have opened, not that they even leave their house. And whatever, you might think that's unreasonable. We just don't want to get this thing, and we don't want to put them at risk because maybe look, that's what it looks like. So we're all doing the best we can. We have the information, and it's up to each one of us to do what is safest and most comfortable for us and for other people. So most officials do believe that COVID is less likely to be transmitted through contact, like touching a plate or a fork that someone's touched. I don't have an issue with that. If you remember to wash your hands and don't touch your eyes, nose, and mouth, which I always have to remind myself of, then I will hand someone a plate or I'll take a glass from someone. And that's where my comfort level is there. It's not having drinks inside, but it's touching someone's plate, right? So we're just doing the best we can. And so right now, infectious disease experts are suggesting that eating outside and maintaining distance, for something like a Thanksgiving dinner or a holiday dinner or autumn dinner, whatever it is you're celebrating, is really going to be the best because that's going to alleviate much of the risk associated with the gathering. And as I said, keeping it to a small group. In addition, while there's no one way to completely eliminate risk, the main consideration should be for those individuals who are considered high risk for complications related to the virus. So those are older individuals with compromised immune systems, those with pre-existing conditions ranging from cardiovascular concerns to physical disabilities. Those folks should not have exposure because of the additional risk factors during this pandemic. So it's going to be cold. It's cold now. It's chilly now. This is the first week we've put the heat on, but it's going to be chilly. But we're going to have our two other couples. So 4 friends are coming over, 2 other couples for Thanksgiving. So it's going to be 6 of us. Now, I'm going to tell you in a little bit what I'm doing to make this holiday special. I did ask everybody to come over at 3 o'clock so we can still enjoy the sun, but enjoy also the beautiful autumn light, which I love so much. But now that I've invited them at 3, I'm actually thinking that we should have it at 2 because it gets dark so early now. And we want to have enough light for cocktails before we sit down for dinner. And it gets chilly. It just gets really chilly. So I'll go into the specifics of making this special. I'm so excited to make this really special. So we will have 3 tables set up. This is what we do. This is what we've done with the other couples that have come over. We'll have 2 couples at each table and we'll be more than 6 feet apart. We are unmasked. Once we all say hello to each other, we are all unmasked when we're at least 6 feet apart from each other, when we're drinking and we're eating. And again, that's a comfort level that we're at. We do let people use our bathroom. We put fresh towels out, hand towels. We make sure our soap dispensers are full. And obviously we encourage people to wash their hands when they're done, when they come out and touch the doorknob. But we don't have to remind anybody of that. We've all been doing this for several months now, and we don't have to remind our friends to wash their hands. And that most people are also carrying disinfectant, which if you listen to that podcast episode I did about that, you don't have to disinfect your hands after you wash your hands. But if you want to do that, you can do that. I did wind up loving one of the zero waste disinfectants that I got. One of them was just weird and oily, but the other one was fantastic. So remind me, I'm going to put that on the page for today's episode at joyfulvegan.com. So all that's to say, we are making this holiday special, like more special than usual, because we deserve it, because you deserve it, because this has been such a very difficult time for so many people, for so many reasons, and we all deserve to go a little above and beyond. That's what I think. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you how, in terms of food and beverages and decor and atmosphere and lots more, how we can make this holiday season super duper special. Now, if you're interested in the history of this holiday, why we celebrate it, and how our specific food traditions have always been fluid and always been flexible while remaining fixed in the autumn harvest, you can find previous episodes of mine in this podcast in Food for Thought, also on my website, also in my books, right? In short, the American Thanksgiving, which is now celebrated on the fourth Thursday. You're going to be like, what? Fourth Thursday in November. It technically began in 1789. President George Washington issued a proclamation designating November 26th of that year of 1789 as a national day of Thanksgiving. He became president in 1789. So he designated that as a national holiday to celebrate the creation of the new United States and the new federal constitution. Now, I have talked a lot about Sarah Josepha Hale because she is the one who lobbied president after president after president to make it an annual holiday, and she finally persuaded President Abraham Lincoln to do so. He designated it a permanent annual federal holiday in 1863 after the Union victory at Gettysburg. For me, I love this holiday. I am a little guilty of saying this is my favorite season because I feel like I say it at every season. But I will say that, which is true, because I do love life and I do love living, but it's the changing of the seasons that I think I love so much. That's why I can say this is my favorite and this is my favorite, because I love the changing of the seasons. I love warm weather. I follow the sun all around. I love when it's summer. I love when the days are long. I love spring when the flowers are all in bloom. And I love fall when the light is low, and I love winter when it's raining. So I love the change of all the seasons. Now, for all you people out there who don't think California has seasons, you're wrong. We do have seasons. They're not as extreme as when I grew up on the East Coast. Of course, you could really see the difference between fall because there's lots of deciduous trees in the East. And so you could see all the leaves turning color, and then you could see the snow on the ground, and then you could see the green leaves in the spring and the flowers, and you can see, oh my God, you could see the humidity in the air in the summer. So you could just see the seasons more clearly. But we do have the seasons here. We have more evergreen trees. We have more pine trees, more redwood trees. That's why you don't see as many leaves turning. But our November is when our deciduous trees turn color. Now, a lot of our deciduous trees are eastern trees. So that's why we have deciduous trees turning color here, because they're actually from the East Coast or from the East. But this is a beautiful time of year. We were married, my husband and I, November 3rd in 2001. And our wedding was like, we were outside. It was just a gorgeous day. So November is just an incredible time of year here. The light is low. It glows. I love the light. I just can't stop talking about the light. I love the sky. I love the sunsets. I love the harvest. I love the plants this time of year. I love the sound of the birds. They're different than in the spring. I love the chill in the air. I love the smell in the air. And no, it's not the fires I'm talking about. I love the shortening of the days, and I love the anticipation of the coming winter. I love the fruits and vegetables that dominate this season. Like I love persimmons and pomegranates and Brussels sprouts and citrus fruits and pears and potatoes and squashes. Like I love the food this time of year. And I love to take advantage of all of these things as I plan the meal, as I plan the centerpiece, as I plan the table settings and the decor, all of it. So if it's not clear, I love this holiday. Now, hosting parties and dinners is also one of my favorite things to do. And while I do really miss our regular parties, our larger gatherings, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to be able to at least still host, albeit smaller groups. And it's a little different, but I know things will change. In the meantime, I'm just going to do the best I can with what's in front of us. What I don't love about this holiday, of course, is the obsession over eating the bodies of turkeys. And you can find many episodes about that in this podcast and as well as material in my books and on my website. Of course, turkey flesh only became a tradition as the centerpiece of this holiday in the mid-20th century. It became trendy to do so. It's not written in stone anywhere that turkey flesh has to be on the table. We change our traditions all the time, but this one got stuck in the public imagination. And so that means about 45 million birds are brought into this world only to be killed for this holiday alone. We can do better than that. So I hope the ideas that I'm sharing with you today and the recipes I've shared in my cookbooks will inspire and empower you to enjoy a fabulous, cruelty-free, seasonal, beautiful, healthful meal that also happens to be zero waste because, that's really a really important topic for me, and it has been for the last couple years. So overall ways to make it special, when I think of how to make whatever it is, any kind of celebration special, it comes down to the people, comes down to the decor, the atmosphere, the food, and the drinks. Now, when we're talking about people, like I said, we're having just 6 of us, right? And we're lucky that the weather will hopefully be decent enough. It will be cold. We also have a structure out back that has a roof. So if for some reason, if it does happen to rain that day, which I don't know that I can see the forecast this far ahead, I don't think it's supposed to rain. But if it does rain, we could possibly go under that structure and still be apart. We've been up there before with 4 other people besides the 2 of us. And I understand that not everybody can do this, right? We live in California. We happen to make our outdoor space. We actually bought this house because we loved all the outdoor spaces. I realize that not everybody has that. Some people are in apartments. Some people are in cities. Some people just don't have the outdoor space. Some people are in places where it's going to be really cold this time of year. So I don't want you to think I'm presuming that everyone could do what we're doing because we can just be outside in California. I don't presume that at all. I also don't presume that everyone has a partnership and friends in a pod that they can see. I don't presume that either, right? I know some people live alone and they don't have partners and they don't have family members that they're living with. So there are many lonely people out there right now. And I haven't forgotten about you. And I think about that a lot. It also includes a lot of seniors who are living in nursing homes and assisted living centers. I've stayed in touch with some of the people at the nursing home my mother resided at, where she died. And I also have a good friend who works in an assisted living home. And it's really tough on this population right now. It's really tough. Family can't visit. They can't have physical touch and physical contact. Some don't have family. So volunteers who would normally fill in that gap, they can't visit. And again, they're being creative. There are people who are visiting outside windows and waving, but it's not the same thing, especially for people who are older and who just need that social engagement and who need the touch. We just not being able to touch someone. I saw someone post on my Instagram in response to a post I'd put out who said that she hasn't hugged anybody in 9 months. I mean, that's really hard. That's really hard. So when I say that we need to make this holiday special, I mean it. And I think it means going out of our way to find the people in the first place. So whether you live alone or not, if you have family members in other states or countries, or if you're alone and you're going to celebrate, I know that everyone is zoomed out. Everyone is just tired of being online, but I do think it's important to make this plan, even if it's just for a short time. Make a plan to have a couple Zoom calls with different friends or family members. Make a plan to have a Zoom Thanksgiving dinner, however that looks. I really love the idea of setting a place at the table for someone who can join you through Zoom, or even through just FaceTime or just a phone call. But having a place for them at the table so they don't feel like they're crashing the party, I think is really special. I also want to really encourage everyone. It's such a hard time, and I know we're not volunteering the way we have. I know many people volunteer this time of year at soup kitchens or delivering meals to people, and that, is just different. We're being creative, but it's not like it used to be. So there's ways we can get around that. I know that lots of vegetarians and vegans, in the past, at least those who I've spoken to, you can still volunteer for a soup kitchen. You just request that you're kind of at the soup station, doing something that's vegetarian or vegan rather than, sorting through the birds or serving the animal flesh. Or if you're sorting through donations, you can say, can I please sort through the canned vegetables or the canned pumpkin or whatever it is, right? So you can still volunteer and be part of this, even though you don't want to see, you want to serve animal products. So check with the organization you normally volunteer with and see what they're doing this year. What's kind of cool is because of COVID, if there are local organizations who don't need your help this year, or they're not doing anything, or they already have everybody they need, we can help from farther away. Like, we have more choices. It might not be sorting food, but there's lots of other ways to help. So if you're interested in volunteering, especially many of you who volunteered through the US election, I know there were a lot of people doing get out the vote, volunteering. There, you have some free time now, and you can take that time and use it to volunteer for the holidays. What's more, and in the spirit of how creative we're being at this time during this pandemic, there are many organizations offering opportunities to get involved, make a difference while doing it safely and from afar. So this is one example, but I think there's lots of organizations doing this. I've seen some chapters of Meals on Wheels recruit volunteers to ensure that no senior will be lonely on Thanksgiving Day. And so they're looking for volunteers to make calls to homebound elderly on Thanksgiving as part of what they're calling Friendly Chats program, a Friendly Chats program. So that's something you can do to help someone who would otherwise be all alone this holiday season. You don't have to do it through an organization. You can even call a neighbor. You can ask on Facebook if there's any friends or family members who would be alone this time of year who'd like to chat, and you can reach out and talk to them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. But just reaching out to someone and letting them know that they're not alone and that someone's thinking about them is, I think, just so amazing for you and for them. So many organizations are doing this kind of thing. Meals on Wheels was just one chapter. One organization, it was one chapter of that organization I saw doing it. Others are recruiting volunteers. Other organizations are recruiting volunteers to write and sign or create or make homemade, whatever it is, whether it's pre-bought, pre-written holiday cards, store-bought or homemade, whatever it is, to send to nursing homes. Right? I mean, how lovely is that? You could pick up the phone and reach out to any local nursing homes or assisted living centers, or you can do it, you can call an organization that's 3,000 miles away. It doesn't matter. And you can just say, I really want to help. I really want to know if there's something I can do to help. Can I send cards to anybody? Can I send cards to anybody in particular who, someone who doesn't have family members? I bet they'll tell you there's a few. Similarly, some organizations have a goal. I saw this one. This was really cool. I have to go find it. I'll put it on the page at joyfulvegan.com. The goal is to write 10,000 notes to isolated seniors this holiday season. So if you make a pledge to write 10 notes and you share them on Giving Tuesday, every note written raises $1. So there's just, again, really creative ways to do this. There's also organizations that are asking volunteers to create Thanksgiving centerpieces for hospice patients. So these are people who may not see another Thanksgiving, and you can brighten their day and their families' lives by making some small decoration or centerpiece that will be delivered along with meals. So you can make, you can do whatever. You can make mason jars filled with popcorn or potpourri or paper plate wreaths or whatever you want to do. Kids can get involved doing this, and it's really, really valuable. You can go grocery shopping for someone who's alone or for a senior. You can reach out to someone you already know, or you can volunteer with an organization. My point is, there are a ton of opportunities to support people at this time who are lonely and who could really use some connection. So either make a plan within your own circle of friends, asking your friends and followers online to see if someone's going to be alone this holiday season and how you can help, or check out volunteermatch.org for a slew of opportunities, volunteermatch.org. I love that organization is still around. I used to work for a nonprofit that supported other nonprofits. I used to work for an organization called Just Give. And so this is somewhere I go to very naturally, is going and finding resources for other organizations. And Volunteer Match has now been around for a long time, as long as I can remember, since all of this kind of online giving started. So it's wonderful, and it's a fantastic resource, and it's gotten so much better over the years, and people use it. The organizations that I volunteer with, Maine Coon Adoptions and Yggdrasil, Wildlife Rescue, they use Volunteer Match, and we find amazing volunteers through that organization. So go use that resource. So that's number one, is people. People is what makes these holidays special. People. Okay. Number two is atmosphere. Now, did I just hear you say that you're not hosting anyone this year, so you don't need to create any kind of special atmosphere? I'm sorry. Are you not special enough? Are you not worth it? I don't think so. Everything I'm suggesting is applicable to you, whether or not you're entertaining yourself or one other person or your family or your pod or outside or inside. So I don't want to hear it, okay? I want to hear it. So make this a special time. Make this special for you. And so I'm a fan of decorating with nature. We will be outside, so most of our outdoor decor will be provided by nature, which is great, which is very natural. But I'm going to do some extra things as well. Now, I'd be doing these things if I were inside. You can go look at joyfulvegan.com and you can see my holiday table from last year. I think the post is called Zero Waste Holiday Dinner, something like that. If you just type in how to have a zero waste holiday dinner, or just type in zero waste, or just type in holiday dinner or holiday, something like that, a keyword like that, you will find it at joyfulvegan.com. In fact, I'll link to it from the episode from the page for today's episode. And you can see what I'm talking about here. So what I did last year was I cut sprigs of rosemary. We have a lot of rosemary in our back garden. Rosemary is all over the place in Northern California, probably Southern California as well. So I cut sprigs of rosemary and I popped them in little vases. We have little tiny glass vases, which I love little vases. They're so cute because I love giving each person their own place setting. That I don't tend to do big fancy centerpieces. I'm frankly just not good at it, but I really like making each place setting really special. So each person, each place setting had that little vase, the little sprig of rosemary, and you can do this with any herb, to be honest, or a flower. And I then printed everybody's name, with a pretty font on cardstock, recycled paper, and then cut it. You can either cut it in an oval, you can cut it however you like. I've had these little craft scissors forever. I mean, literally I think since I was a teenager, that, when you cut, it kind of creates like a little ridge. Little ridges. So I cut the little names out, and then I punched a hole in the top, and I tied it with a little raffia ribbon onto that little vase. So everybody had their own little name, little place, their little name tag on their place setting, which is really cute. You could do the same thing if you don't want to do it with a vase and a sprig of herbs or flower. You can do it like you can get a little pumpkin. And then everybody can take that pumpkin home with them, and you can encourage them to put that little pumpkin outside for the critters to enjoy once they're done enjoying their little pumpkin. But each person can have a little pumpkin at their place setting, and you can tie their name on the stem or not. You don't have to tie their name at all. So I will be doing something like that again. I haven't decided. I think I do like the idea of a little pumpkin. I think I'm going to take my own advice. So that's something you can do. I also really love napkin rings. We use only cloth napkins. We don't have paper napkins. And so I don't fold napkins. I just like sticking the napkins inside. I have mostly like brown metal rings shaped as leaves, and I, stick the napkins in those. They're perfect for the fall. In fact, I tend to use them only in the fall. I really don't even have any spring napkin holders. I really should get them, but I really love that. I did just go over to a favorite Etsy store, and I am thinking of getting some more cloth napkins that are for special occasion, that are woodland animals. I actually put it on my wish list for David to get me for Christmas. So I'm going to have it for Thanksgiving. But anyway, the idea is cloth napkins are wonderful. Wonderful anytime, any day, any holiday, whatever. But they're also really wonderful gifts for friends because there are so many patterns and there are so many options, and you can easily customize them based on who you're buying them for. And you're supporting small artisans if you do buy them at like Etsy, and they encourage zero waste habits, and they're wonderful gifts. They're affordable and they're really special. They're really good housewarming gifts as well. So I do really recommend cloth napkins I recommend cloth napkins. But whatever you do and however you create your place settings or your table, use what you have, right? Too often we have like really nice flatware. We only bring it out once a year, or china or something that sits in a cupboard because we're like saving it for a special occasion. Well, today is that special occasion. You're alive, you're well, and you're loved. And that's reason enough to celebrate. When I moved my mother out of her condo and into the nursing home, this is several years ago now, I donated most of her belongings, but I kept the really pretty china she had that we had growing up. And it's been sitting in my in-laws' basement for years because they're in New Jersey as well. So when I was moving everything out of my mother's place, that's where I brought the things that I couldn't just bring back with me on the plane. And I really want to get them back. So we're not traveling at all. So I'd have to ask them to pack everything up for me and ship everything to me. And of course, with the plates, they'd have to be packed up really carefully, which is a big deal. It's a lot to ask of someone. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them for this. I'm certainly not going to get it for Thanksgiving, I don't think. But I really want to use them because it will make me think of my mother. I don't have a lot of, family heirlooms or anything like that, but it'd be really special. It would be really special to do that. So whatever you have that's special, use it. Like, use it now. That's what zero waste living is all about. It's not about going and buying all the zero waste stuff you can get. It's about valuing what you already have. It's about using what you have. It's about using the things for which they were made. So break it out. Use the good stuff. Another element for creating the perfect atmosphere for me is lighting. Now, we joke in my household and among my friends that I'm an HSP. It's actually funny, not funny, because I am an HSP. So that means a highly sensitive person. And I was telling a friend about this last year, and he's like, there's a book about that. Like, that's a real thing. And I was like, what? And he's like, no, it's a real like personality type or psychological orientation. I don't know, whatever it is. There's a book called A Highly Sensitive Person, but whatever. I think he showed it to me and I looked at some part and it's just validating because I'm like, yeah, that's me. I am very sensitive to very like loud noises. I don't like, David knows that I can't stand if like, did I tell you this? Have I told you this before? Like if he shuts a door, like just turn the knob so it's quiet when you shut the door as opposed to just like closing it so that you can hear the whole thing click. Drives me crazy. So we have new screen doors we put out on the kitchen door, for instance. And last week he was coming and going because he was on a call on his Bluetooth, on his headphones. He was in a meeting, but he's coming in and out while I was in the kitchen cooking. And he was coming in and out because he was making tea. And his hands were full. So every time he left or came in, the door would slam. And I'd be like, stop it. I can't take it. So light is another thing that I'm very sensitive to. I like very low light. It's actually kind of funny. I don't realize it until I have other people here. or until like David comes down, I barely put the lights on. Even like, so I wake up very early. I wake up before the sun's even out, and I love that. So the lights very low. We have dimmers. I'm a huge fan of dimmers everywhere. And I don't put lights on because I just really like, so sometimes I'll be in the kitchen cooking and I'm like, I can't see anything. Like I need to put the light up. So I'm very sensitive to all these things. And that's why I really love to have like the perfect glow. That's what I love about dimmers. That's what I love about candles. And that's what I'll have obviously on these 3 separate tables. I'll put little tea lights out on each table, so each person will have their own setting. Now, when we're inside, I do have candles lit in various places around the rooms we entertain in. I don't tend to have candles on tables when we're eating because you're passing things around. It's too hard to navigate the candles around the candles. You know, when you're passing dishes and reaching for food, you don't burn yourself. So I do put the candles more around the room. We don't have a huge dining room. Our table's round and it's a small room. But if you have a nice long table, you can place tall candle holders, candelabra in the center that won't obstruct views, you know, so the people who are sitting across from one another can still see one another. So by all means, if you have the ability to do that, get some tall candle holders. So beautiful, so romantic. Now, speaking of lighting, while I don't tend to do this for Thanksgiving, only because I associate them more with the winter holidays, I love strings of little white lights. Love them. One of the reasons I love when Thanksgiving is over, the following weekend, this is my tradition, not before, but right after Thanksgiving is over, the following weekend, up go the Christmas decorations, garland with little white lights, wreaths with little white lights, trees with little white lights. Outside, we have strings of white lights. So I like lighting for ambiance. So whether you're hosting outside or inside this year, or you're alone, or you're with just one other person or a whole group of people safely, I do encourage you to incorporate some little white lights for ambiance or candles or something like that. Because the sun goes down so early in the fall and the winter, you will be able to take advantage of that. That's why we have Christmas lights and whatever you want to call it, winter lights. That's why we have all of those little lights. It's because it's our way of keeping the darkness illuminated. So that's the practical reason for them and the symbolic reason for them. It's bringing in the light, even though the sun has gone down very early. Now, if you have a fireplace, obviously also lighting a fire will do the same. We have yet to convert our wood-burning fireplace into gas, and we have, we're always mindful of, obviously, we have spare the air days here in California. I don't know if you have them where you are because of the air quality that can be poor and compromised by smoke. But and we don't light fires very often. When we do, we usually use some kind of like eco little log. However, last year, a huge oak tree fell on our hillside. And because it's kind of a fire hazard to have a dead tree and dead leaves and dead branches sitting on the hillside, we had some arborists come out and clean it up. And while they hauled some of it away, I had them chop it up and pile it up. So basically, we have wood for our fireplace for years to come. And we will be using that in our fireplace. We also just got a fire pit out back specifically for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure it's going to arrive by Thanksgiving. I have resisted getting a fire pit because I don't like, obviously the smoke is horrible. So I found a smokeless fire pit. It is wood burning. It's not gas. And it got rave reviews. There's just this technology because like the holes are on the bottom. So all of the smoke goes down through the bottom as opposed to coming up and hitting everybody in the face. So we are going to have warmth and the glow of a fire outside without the smoke. Hopefully it will come before Thanksgiving, but I'm not really sure. So in fact, the best way I could sum up my love of this time of year is in the word gemütlichkeit. It sums up everything I love about this time of year and everything I try to create in general and everything I try to create this time of year, Gemütlichkeit. If you've never heard of that word, don't worry. I hadn't either until a few years ago, about 5 years ago when we were in Germany. And I was so excited because here was one word that encapsulated everything about what I try to create in my home, in my life. year round, especially this time of year in the fall and the winter, is Gemütlichkeit. It's a wonderful German word that mistranslates as cozy belonging, but that might be the best we have. There is not one word in English that translates to the same word. And please forgive me to all of the native German speakers if I'm butchering the word. But if you haven't heard of Gemütlichkeit, you've probably heard of a Danish equivalent of this German word because it became very trendy and very popular, and that's hygge. Or hygge. Just forgive my pronunciation of that as well if you're a Danish speaker. But the idea is, and it's spelled Hyggge. They both basically mean the same thing. It's the joy of comfort and warmth. It has no English translation, not a direct translation. Neither one of them do. But cozy captures some of it, but it lacks the belonging and the friendliness that comes with it. So the first time I think that was the first time I heard the word Gemütlichkeit. It was on Christmas Eve. So just let me set the stage for you. Just imagine this. It was snowing. It was in Germany, in southern Germany, in a little tiny town, and there was a little cozy pub, this small, dark wood, low ceilinged, low lighting, thank you, pub. And there were men in lederhosen because it was Christmas Eve, and that is kind of traditional attire for Christmas Eve, and it's, traditional hunting attire, but that's a conversation for another time. But it was full of atmosphere, and there were small groups and chatter and beer, and it was actually the first time I ever tried a beer that I liked, because I don't like beer typically. And it's the word that David and I, and now Bridie and Seb, because we were with Bridie and Seb, our friends who we travel with, and now we just use that word all the time. They purposefully butcher it. Sorry, guys, but you do. You know what you do. And you've never really tried that hard to say it properly. I'm just going to say that. But it is the word that when we use that word whenever we're describing like that cozy, warm, communal feeling, Gemütlichkeit. So that's what I try to capture. So if you're interested in Gemütlichkeit, that's what I'm talking about here. So number 1, people. Number 2, atmosphere, or number 2, Gemütlichkeit. And number 3, beverages. So indeed, David, my introverted husband, knew full well when he married me that I love to entertain. And I will admit that the first several years of our courtship, he acted like he didn't know this. So let's just say it took a while before he would say went limp and gave in, is what he would say. He's like, I've just gone limp. He loves me, and he has become the consummate co-host. He resisted in the beginning, and it just didn't come naturally. I have talked about how I grew up with a mother who entertained all the time. My mother had, like more parties than I do, and like tons of people, because we had a huge family and cousins and aunts and uncles, and it was the neighbors and everybody, the kids. We had this big backyard. And I grew up like that. David didn't grow up with cousins, and he had 3 siblings, but they just didn't have these kinds of parties. I grew up with it. So he had to learn. He had to learn. And so he has become the consummate co-host. Now, COVID hasn't changed that, since we're able to host outside, and we fall into our respective duties when it comes to hosting, and it's really lovely. I take care of kind of the planning and the invitations and the food and the decor and kind of the whole flow of the day. And David takes care of the drinks and the music, and he does take care of the dishes. I do like to think that I help with the dishes sometimes, but David really does the dishes. So for smaller groups or one other couple, David will often make cocktails. For larger groups, we don't have him do that because it's just too much work to be, you're kind of far away from everybody, unless we're, out back and we have a little bar outside. Anyway, but for the larger groups, we just usually have wine, and we have non-alcoholic beverages as well. We always have water in pitchers, and we have glasses all out on the counter bar we have inside. In this case, for Thanksgiving this year, outside when people arrive. Now, we always have some special non-alcoholic beverage. We'll get some sparkling kinds of, seltzer, that kind of thing. But I always make hibiscus water. I'll probably do hibiscus water this year for Thanksgiving. It's so pretty, and we always have them in pitchers. So, and what we usually do, especially now that we've been doing these kind of multi-table dinners, is each table gets a carafe of water I set on the table. We have a number of different like carafes. I got it at Goodwill, which are wonderful. So just go get some water carafes. They're so convenient to have on tables for this kind of occasion. So each couple has their own carafe of water. And we do serve drinks first, and then and some appetizers and finger foods. I'm going to talk about some specifics when I get to the food. But that's basically how we structure it, is usually when people arrive, David's in charge of the drinks. David's in charge of the music. I'm still getting food ready. I'm still doing this. I'm greeting the guests. David's greeting the guests, and he always gets the drink. So it works out really well. And then we move into the food, and we move into the dinner, and we'll talk about what that is right now. But first, I want to stop and take a moment to express my gratitude to all of you who listen to this podcast, who have been for now going on 15 years, which is incredible. And I'm so grateful because I love doing this podcast. And sometimes I feel like I can't do it enough. There's still so much I want to share with you, and it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, but I love doing it, and I can only do it because of your support and because you listen, because you're here, and because you subscribe. So thank you. If you are interested in becoming a supporter, you can choose whatever level you want to support at. There's perks at different levels. I know most of you just do it because you want to support this podcast. And so thank you for that. You can choose the annual pledge or the monthly pledge. Either way, you get your perks right away. The annual pledge is really wonderful because you just do it once. You don't have to think about it until next year. And it means that I don't have to see all the declines. There's a lot of declines that show up in Patreon because people just forget. The credit cards expire, you change credit cards, you lose them, they're stolen, what have you. And so I get that people don't think, oh gosh, one of the first things I have to do is go over to Patreon and change my credit card for Colleen. But if you can remember to do that, it would be a gift to me. And if you do the annual, of course, that's not an issue until the next year when I'm going to come after you. Just kidding. So thank you so much. Thank you to, we have some new supporters. We have some veteran supporters. Thank you to Charlotte Westover, Judy Malecki-Gillerin. We have Lydia McCormick. We have Cynthia. I am going to just destroy your beautiful name. Dubrotinsek. Am I close? Thank you for your support. Rachel Lovell, Birgit Seuss, Ellen Johnson, Jimmy Chan, Stephanie Fiala, Katie Sturgis, Miriam Hamidian. We have a Sharon, I don't have a last name, Jessie Stryker, Christina Mazzer, Sophie B, so many amazing people. And I feel like this is the first time in a long time where I feel like there's a lot more international supporters, which is so incredible. And I have this incredible letter from Yuki in Osaka, Japan, who is a new supporter. And I'll just read an excerpt. She wrote, I'm going to cry because you're all so incredible. She wrote, I came across your podcast about 2 months ago, and I started listening from 2006, old episodes, and now I'm around the end of 2009. I wonder, you've got a lot of catching up to do. My vegan journey started in 2011, and I've been on and off, but I've been feeling guilty because of the wrongdoings to the animals, environment, and to my health. It was always in the back of my head. What I always knew in my head is actualizing in my day-to-day living. The compassion and hope in your voice resonated with me more than any other movie, readings, videos, talks, and moreover, my then 17-year-old daughter who wanted to walk this walk 2 years ago. A week ago, a sudden revelation came over me one morning when I was offered a chocolate macaron at work. I knew I would not eat it, and I knew in my heart I would not go back. My life of always having to choose between two things is a thing of the past. Those unhealthy cookies and chips that are ubiquitous seemed innocuous before because they're not as obvious as fried chicken. Now I can easily say no without effort because they often contain eggs or flavors or products of animal flesh. I feel so liberated and clean. I'm Japanese. I've seen the huge change in my diet. I've seen a huge change in the diet of this country in my life of 52 years. As the movement of animal exploitation-free lifestyle has become more prevalent in the US, I can see with my own eyes that cow and pig flesh is rushing into this country with tsunami force. There's a number of all-you-can-eat Korean barbecue restaurants, and people are always talking about tasty but cheap US and Australian beef, American and Canadian pork. The US government must be working very hard to ditch the export duty of animal products, foreseeing the market decline in its own country. Luckily, we have a great variety of seasonal fresh produce available all year round in Japan. So much more to say, but I will end this message with sincere gratefulness to your work. I hope I can meet you in person one day. Yuki Heimer, Osaka, Japan. Thank you so much, Yuki. And actually, Cynthia sent me a little message as well on Patreon. Cynthia, please forgive my pronunciation of your last name or mispronunciation, and please tell me how to say it. I really want. It's so beautiful. Cynthia wrote, "Hi, Colleen. This was a long time coming. I have learned from you and enjoyed your podcast for years now. Recently, I've reflected that it's important to support the things/products and works you respect by putting money behind them. Your many works are such one thing in my life. Thank you for your work. It is very valuable to me." And you're valuable to me. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to write. Obviously, you can send messages to me directly through social media these days, or you can just write me an email through support@joyfulvegan.com. But of course, as a Patreon supporter, you can write directly on the Patreon platform, which is really fantastic. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to my heroic platinum and gold supporters, still Morgan Hall, still Michal Stone, still David Cabrera and Alexander Gray, your heroes. I'm so grateful. If you'd like to become a supporter, you can please do so at patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Okay, so drinks, beverages. So I've been nudging David. I actually sent him some today. I've been nudging David to test some new fall cocktails so we can have something new and special for Thanksgiving. One cold weather cocktail that is amazing. It's on the sweet side, so it might be better as an aperitif, like as an after dinner drink, is a White Russian. Do you remember White Russians? So White Russian is a cocktail made with vodka, coffee liqueur, it's usually Kahlua, and cream served with ice in an old-fashioned glass. Now, we do use my own homemade almond or soy milk for this drink, but I will give you a non-zero waste tip. If you want the most incredible White Russian, now you can still do this with homemade soy milk or homemade almond milk. It's still creamy, it's still delicious. But Califia, so I've heard it pronounced Califia and Califia. I think it's Califia because I think the idea was that it's California, so it's pronounced Califia. Anyway, their hazelnut creamer, I can't. I'm just plotzing just thinking about it. It's amazing. So that's a fun cocktail if you want something really simple. But there are so many lovely cocktails, alcoholic and non-alcoholic, that you can make for Thanksgiving. I've been feeding David ideas to make. I want an apple cider Moscow Mule. It's one option. I don't want all of these. I want these as options. I want him to figure out which one he wants to do. And I'm going to try and persuade him to do one of these for the Thanksgiving class. Because in some of the classes in the past, we had him come at the end and he would teach a cocktail that was related to that theme. So I'm going to see if I can convince him to do a cocktail for the Thanksgiving class. So I've sent him a few that I want. I want an apple cider Moscow Mule. So a Moscow Mule is ginger beer and whatever else it is. I can't remember. I think it's not rum. Is it rum? I don't remember. David does the mixology. I can't remember. Vodka? It's vodka maybe. I think, of course, it's the Moscow Mule. I'm thinking of the Kentucky Buck, which is actually bourbon. Okay, the Moscow Mule obviously is vodka. So ginger beer is a huge aspect of the Moscow Mule, but you can do ginger beer and hard apple cider. So that will make it an apple cider Moscow Mule. Now, you can also make this non-alcoholic. You can do apple cider and not hard apple cider, just a regular apple cider. And you can also do ginger beer, which obviously is not alcoholic. Leave out the vodka, make it special, serve it in traditional copper mugs. Oh my God, that's what I want. The other thing I want is an apple pie sangria. So David makes a killer stone fruit sangria in the summer, and I want him to make me an apple pie sangria for Thanksgiving. Also a great way to use copper mugs if you have them. So you could cut up apples and pears, yum, for the sangria. The apple pie part, and David has taught how to make a simple syrup in past classes. The simple syrup is basically an apple pie simple syrup. So you make a simple syrup by infusing it with cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, and allspice. How amazing does that sound? Very is the answer. The other thing I want him to make is an apple cider whiskey smash. Okay, this is just the last one. So that would be like whiskey and lemon juice and apple cider. Really easy, really simple. You mix it up in a cocktail shaker and you serve it with ice. That is the extent of my mixology knowledge, because he is the mixologist in the house. I am the cook. I am the baker. So for something even more warming, and I am planning on doing this for Thanksgiving, and it's totally Gemütlichkeit, and it reminds me of all the Christmas markets we've been to in Germany and in Austria and Switzerland that we won't be going to this year, and that's mulled wine. Now, if you don't drink alcohol, you can still make mulled apple cider. You don't have to you don't have to do this with alcohol, but the mulled part means it's spiced. And the idea is to keep it warm. And the best way to do that is through a slow cooker. It's a super easy way to just keep a warm beverage warm, like a crock pot, a slow cooker. So if you don't do it for the appetizers, for like, or for the, the pre-meal drinks, you can do it for, wait for it, at the end of the meal, hot cocoa. So you can have in a slow cooker, hot cocoa, make your hot cocoa or hot chocolate. You know the difference, right? Hot cocoa is made with cocoa powder and sugar, and hot chocolate is made with chocolate that you melt in the milk. So hot chocolate is going to be a lot richer. I love hot chocolate. I love hot cocoa as well. You can put both in and just make it delicious. And then you have it sitting in the slow cooker and just staying warm. How amazing is that? And then you can create a little hot cocoa station so people can build on that hot cocoa. So they can put in, like on the table, you can have rum or bourbon or amaretto or cinnamon sticks or vegan marshmallows or vegan whipped cream. How much fun would that be? A lot of fun. Okay, so those are the beverages. Let me hear your ideas. Very interested to know what you're going to do. When it comes to the food for a Thanksgiving meal or autumn dinner or fall feast, frankly, any meal, I'm all about, especially for the special occasions, I'm about having a couple appetizers, but not too many, because especially for Thanksgiving dinner or a holiday meal, it's all about abundance. So you could do something simple. You don't have to have appetizers because, we're all stuffed by the time we get to the salad. I don't know. Like, I mean, I love this meal, but I actually don't love feeling overly full. I always make sure we try to walk on Thanksgiving, but it can be really filling, right? So I try to keep it simple. However, I'm really thinking this year, there's a couple things I'm thinking. I'm thinking of doing a really beautiful cheese platter, like a cheese board with either homemade cashew cheese. You can also get, whatever your favorite commercial soft cheeses are. I know some of you have local ones. Miyoko's obviously is more prevalent than ever before, which is fantastic. And for the fruit, like keep it really autumnal, like slice up persimmons and apples and pears and figs and pomegranates, pomegranate seeds, but you can keep some of those fruits whole, and they're a beautiful part of the decor on the platter. You can have some nuts like pecans and walnuts and cashews. You can have little cornichons, little pickles, and olives. You can have dried fruit like dried apricots. You can have a variety of crackers or just a sliced baguette. You can do some kind of muhammara. You can have hummus, what have you. You could just make a beautiful platter of just abundance and color. Now, if you don't want to serve this cheese and fruit board for starters, you can be very French-like and have it as dessert. That's a very French dessert. You can do that as well. The point is to make it super pretty and abundant, fill it up with autumnal delights, and just make sure there's little forks for everybody to pick things up, right? Obviously, and have their cocktail plates for everybody to just pick up. I love that. You can keep it simple. You can just do a standard crudité platter with celery and broccoli and cauliflower and carrots. You can have a nice creamy dip in the center, whether it's hummus or a nice, sour cream, non-dairy sour cream dip, and keep it with the autumn theme by serving the dip in a hollowed out little pumpkin. You're welcome. Save the seeds from the pumpkin, make spicy roasted pumpkin seeds as part of, I don't know, the appetizers. You can have them in a little bowl on each table or at least at each place setting. You can make them as part of the salad. You can make them as a topping for a soup that you're making part of the meal, whatever. So keep those pumpkin seeds, toss them with a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt and a little bit of chili powder, what have you, and just roast them. Delicious. In terms of keeping appetizers on the light side, I'm kind of a huge fan of popcorn. I know it seems like not very sophisticated, but I actually think it is sophisticated, especially if you make it a little more sophisticated with something like truffle salt. And so I usually have, I mean, it really depends on the season, but I love the idea of like, well, I don't love the idea. I do this often, little bowls of popcorn. So when people arrive, if we're sitting down at our own respective tables, we each have a little bowl of popcorn, like a small bowl. Each person has their own little bowl of popcorn. It's kind of cute. It's kind of ridiculous. And there's also special popcorn you can get. Rancho Gordo has red kernel popcorn, really pretty for this time of year, really white, fluffy popcorn with red kernels, and there's very little of the hull, so it's really lovely. So I like that as an appetizer. I'm thinking this year I might try my hand at a cheese log. I might not do it for Thanksgiving. I might do it for Christmas. I'll let you know how it goes. I'm excited about it. I'm looking at doing like a boozy kind of cherry, like cream cheese log. I'll let you know how it goes. But look, I have a million recipes for appetizers in my books, in The Joyful Vegan, in Color Me Vegan, in The Vegan Table, in Vegan's Daily Companion, in the 30-Day Vegan Challenge. What more could I give you? Or at joyfulvegan.com. But just think small, think colorful, and think seasonally. Creating a beautiful autumnal menu that draws from all the riches of this season's harvest. That's what it is. And it's not very different from what most of us grew up with, right? When we're making a meal like this, like a Thanksgiving meal, we can make a few tweaks by using non-dairy butter, non-dairy milk, vegetable stock instead of animal-based, stock. And the side dishes really remain the same. Nothing's different. For the main dish, you've heard me say this. I believe that what people are attached to is a beautiful centerpiece on the table, right? That's why, look, the turkey comes out, right? Whatever. If you had a beautiful horizontal plate of pumpkins, stuffed squash, I mean, there's so many ways to create a beautiful centerpiece. People would go, oh my God, that's gorgeous, right? But I also believe it's about the focal point on the plate. Most of us were conditioned to believe that the centerpiece and focal point had to be animal-based meat. But I think that what it really is, it's about having a focal point. And so when it comes to the main dish, I don't think, one of the ways you can create this focal point is in a number of different ways. So I talk about this in like the Vegan Table. I talk about this in the 30-Day Vegan Challenge. Things that are stuffed, like stuffed eggplant, stuffed peppers, stuffed mushrooms, stuffed winter squash. Of course, for this season, it's perfect. Stuffed potatoes, stuffed olives, stuffed corn husks. Having something stuffed, that's the focal point. It's beautiful. In the Vegan Table, I have the harvest stuffed acorn squash. We're doing that for the Thanksgiving class this year. You can also find recipes at joyfulvegan.com. I have a curried apricot saffron pilaf that you can put inside squash or pumpkins or what have you. Hollowing out those pumpkins, like I said, you can use that for a soup. You can use that for any kind of stuffing. So that's one way to create a focal point. Another way to create a focal point is to confine in a custard cup or a ramekin or individual bowls or make miniature pot pies, like each person having their own little pot pie. So I kind of have an amazing pot pie in the 30-Day Vegan Challenge. And if you have not purchased the on-demand class for homemade seitan yet and don't know how to make my Better Than Chicken, you are missing out. I love Gardein. I love all of the wonderful companies that are making Better Than Chicken and Better Than Beef and all of these wonderful commercial products. I want the world to have them. And I'm not really threatening them by having my own homemade version. I'm telling you, you can make chicken nuggets at home, chicken cutlets with this recipe. If you go to joyfulvegan.com/classes, you will find the on-demand for the homemade seitan class. unbelievable. So you make the chicken pot pie using that chicken and everything else that's in the 30-day vegan challenge. I may in there say use the homemade seitan, which is also in that book, but the chicken is different and it's better. And I have that recipe in the on-demand class. But one way to make that meal is to have like one big pot. Like, so I love one pot meals, right, of the pot pie. But imagine giving each person in their own ramekin their own little pot pie. It's adorable. People feel special, and it creates a focal point. So that's another idea. Another idea for creating a focal point is creating shapes. So you can use cookie cutters, you can use like muffin cutters, and you can make polenta, for instance, or tortillas or pancakes, whatever it is. And I keep talking about polenta because it's such a wonderful, easy thing to do. We're doing polenta fries in my air fryer class, which is coming up the day after the Thanksgiving class. That will also be an on-demand class once that's over. Polenta fries, amazing. If you just set up polenta and then you use shapes, you cut them out in shapes, again, focal point. Other obvious focal points, we think of tempeh or seitan or tofu or portobello mushrooms, other kind of obvious focal points. That's another idea. And then also finally, something like a loaf or a patty or a timbale or a mold. Those are other focal points. So like a timbale is really wonderful. You make it with you do kind of a short grain rice, kind of like a risotto almost, and you put it in something like, so you make that and then you mold it in a ramekin and you unmold it on the plate and then you can garnish it. Super pretty. There's one in the vegan table, also focal point, right? Another final idea is a phyllo dough. So, or any kind of, like any layered phyllo. Could be a little purse, a little phyllo purse, or it could just be a layered, it could be rolled, it could be layered, it could be anything. So again, focal point, focal point, focal point. So when you're hosting people or when you have your meal and your family sees you on Zoom and they're like, oh, you're not eating that looks like just side dishes. Be like, what are you talking about? Look at how gorgeous this is. You could show off your focal point on Zoom. And then obviously the side dishes, I don't have to tell you, mashed potatoes and gravy, green beans. A lot of people like green bean casseroles this time of year. Traditional bread stuffing, we're going to be doing that also in the Thanksgiving class. Cranberry relish, fresh corn, mashed rutabagas, roasted Brussels sprouts, roasted anything, roasted root vegetables, carrots, yams, potatoes, sweet potatoes, cornbread. I love biscuits. For Thanksgiving, green salad. So all of the side dishes that you would associate with this time of year, there's no difference just because you're not having animal products. And then dessert, what can I say that you don't already know? You don't need animal products to enjoy an abundance of delicious desserts. The joy of vegan baking could tell you that. Options abound. Apple pie, stuffed apples, cherry pie, fig and date bread, pumpkin bread, German apple cake. There's a recipe at joyfulvegan.com. Apple upside down cake. I'm obsessing over that right now. I just had one at Millennium Restaurant. Obsessing, and I think that's what I'm making this year for my Thanksgiving, apple upside down cake, apple cobbler. We're doing that in the Thanksgiving class. Cranberry muffins, pumpkin pie, pumpkin cheesecake, pumpkin mousse, chocolate cheesecake, chocolate cake, chocolate chip cookies, apple cranberry galette. You can make a galette. Butterscotch pudding, recipe at joyfulvegan.com. Pine nut anise cookies. The list goes on and on and on. The only dessert you will not find at my house, I did not include it. A couple of you have noticed this over the years. There's one traditional dessert this time of year that I did not include. You know what it is? It's pecan pie. I've never had a pecan pie I like. I know that many of you like pecan pie. I don't like it. It's just too cloyingly sweet. And when I was testing for the joy of vegan baking, clearly I could revisit this. It's been 15 years since I was testing for that book, but there's just other recipes I prefer to make and test and play with. Even when I was testing, it's just corn syrup and it's just too much, too sweet. I don't like it, but there's lots of ideas. If you want anything, you're looking for something in particular, drop me a line. I'll see if I can help. Now, that's not all. I'm almost done. That's the food. There's some other special touches I'm excited about to make this year special. If it's not enough to be alive and celebrating with a few friends outside during this beautiful season, I want to do a little bit more. I'm going to make it a little more special. So one thing I did was, number one, I mailed invitations. Now, it's only 2 couples, so I only mailed 2 invitations. So I didn't go crazy or anything like that. But I wanted this year to feel special. So I have a favorite card maker. It's paperculture.com. No, and they did not sponsor this podcast. I'm telling you this just because I think they're amazing. For every order you place with them, paperculture.com, they plant a tree. And they've planted over 1 million trees. They work with both domestic and international organizations to plant trees where reforestation is needed the most. Now, you might say, you're weird. You're killing trees to plant trees. No, they use only post-consumer waste and wood alternatives for their cards. So after that, like even more, they offset the carbon footprint that they create by just existing by planting trees. I've used them for years for our Christmas cards because you can do photo cards with them on just like a nice matte recycled paper, like cardstock. And I've kind of started using them as my address book for Christmas cards because that's where I mail everything through them. What I love is you can have cards or invitations or whatever it is you order through them sent directly to you with the envelopes, and then you can send them out, or you can just submit all of the addresses to them and they mail them out. So you pay for the stamp and everything, but hello, how much easier is that? I love that so much. So I did that with the invitations. You can also have them do, they can do checks. They can either do a printed check, especially if you're ordering special things that you want them to check how it looks or proofread it. You can do that as well. So I love them. Paperculture.com, and I created a cute little invitation for our friends. I actually put it on my website so you can see it, and I had it mailed to them, and I'm excited about that. Number 2, I have been wanting to do this for ages. COVID inspired me to finally do it, but we didn't start doing it until like recently when it started getting cold, but it will remain through however long. We have a projector screen out back now, and we bought a projector for $100, and it's a good one. Like, it does the job. And a friend of ours had this huge like 5x8 screen, or maybe more than that, 6x8 screen that he wasn't using. And so he brought it, we hung it, we can take it down and up whenever we need it. And it hangs on our back wall of our house. And it's like could not be better placement because you can sit on the patio with quite a few people and still be distanced and watch a movie or whatever. And so I'm super excited about this. It might be too cold by the time the sun goes down and we're finished with dinner, but I'm still going to try it because especially with COVID, we can't have friends inside and watching a movie. And so snuggling up, of course, I'm going to put a blanket on everybody's chair when they come for Thanksgiving. Hopefully we'll have the fire pit, keeping everybody warm, giving them lots of warming things like alcohol. Our friends do drink, or, whatever. They could just have hot cocoa. But the point is we're going to keep our fingers crossed that we will be able to be outside watching something. 3, I found some beautiful printables. There's some really lovely things. I have a paper that I'm going to print, and at the top it says I'm grateful for. And it's a blank piece of paper. So we don't, our friends are kind of amazing. We usually do talk about what we're grateful for. It's not like I need to prompt them, but it helps. It's always helpful to have something like that. And then I also found this really cool printable. It's a little game, if you will. And you print it out, and each person, people pick from the stack. And there's questions like, what makes you most grateful? What are you most thankful for? What's the best thank you ever received? Name one thing about someone sitting next to you that you really appreciate. I used to do a mastermind with a couple friends of mine, colleagues, Michelle Kane and Rita Stalish. And we, at the end of our mastermind session, Rita was the one who inspired this. He would always, what we did, I get emotional. He would we would end it by going around and saying what we appreciated about the other people in the group. So it would be how we end. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful way to end our meetings. And who can't use more inspiration like that? So even though we love our friends and they're amazing and we all talk about how grateful we are all the time, it's not a horrible thing to prompt something like just, telling them what you appreciate them. And with a small enough group, you can do that. And so there's other prompts as well. What's your favorite kind of pie? What's the best random act of kindness? What's the perfect Thanksgiving side dish? Whatever. And so I had that. I'll include the link. It's not mine. This is not original to me. I will include that on the page for today's podcast as well. So I hope you create your own rituals and traditions. Find ones that become new for you, things that you can pass down over the years. Take advantage of rituals and traditions that have been passed down to you. Embrace what works for you. Embrace what reflects your values. Discard the rest, right? It's what we always do anyway. When this holiday comes around, there's always talk of like what's traditional and what we've done and what's real and what's true. Whatever you want to be real and true for you is real and true. So just because we're looking at it through the lens of veganism, right? Don't let anybody take that away from you. We change our traditions all the time. Look, if this pandemic hasn't demonstrated how flexible we are and how capable we are and how resilient we are and how creative we are, I don't know what would. And so this is another opportunity to remind people of that when it comes to the foods we choose and the meals we choose and the traditions we create and the traditions we pass down. We shape our traditions out of our ideals. Each of us can decide what we want Thanksgiving to be for ourselves, for our families, and we can recognize that there is no contradiction between eating compassionately, honoring tradition, making this a special holiday. But whatever meaning we attribute to this holiday, you've heard me say this before, it is most certainly not lost. In fact, it is enhanced by creating food-based rituals that affirm rather than take life, that demonstrate compassion and empathy rather than selfishness and gluttony, and that celebrate the fact that neither our values nor an animal need be sacrificed in order that we should eat. I'd like to close with a prayer I wrote many years ago called My Prayer for Humans on Behalf of Animals. If the word prayer makes you uncomfortable, then you can replace it with another word, but it is my calling to humans on behalf of animals. And it goes like this. My hope is that we can navigate through this world with the grace and integrity of those who most need our protection. May we have the sense of humor and the liveliness of the goats. May we have the maternal instincts and protective nature of the hens and the sassiness of the roosters. May we have the gentleness and strength of the cattle and the wisdom, humility, and serenity of the donkeys. May we appreciate the need for community, as do the sheep, and choose our companions as carefully as do the rabbits. May we have the faithfulness and commitment to family of the geese, the adaptability and the affability of the ducks. May we have the intelligence, loyalty, and affection of the pigs, and the inquisitiveness, sensitivity, and playfulness of the turkeys. My hope is that we can learn from the animals what we need to become better people. And may it be so. For the animals, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for listening.